Alright, we are live. Today we're finding and reading some more books in Morrowind. And yeah, so should be a good time. I've also started, I'll just say this right at the start. Um so um Started posting like audiobooks, I guess, for individual books just on their own on my channel. So, and that'll be a playlist, and as it goes, you can, once it gets long enough, I guess, the playlist, I mean, you can probably just put that on the background or something. I mean, I've done that before, just had like lore. I mean, usually I would do lore videos, but same difference. Um, so that's cool. And also, if there's a specific book that you want me to read, go ahead and, put that in the comments somewhere. It doesn't really matter where, or let me know somehow. And I'll definitely, take suggestions or requests, however you want to call it. Maybe even for other stuff as well. I don't know. Like if for some reason there's something else, some other, book or something. Something short preferably if you want me to read something as well. I'm up for that. It's kind of fun doing recording that.
Let's not make this official, Homelander.
But yeah.
Move along.
I've started with shorter books in the with audiobooks. Cause honestly, like I wanna do like Dance and Fire. I wanna do that, but I'm kinda worried about doing something so long. Right? Like that seems like a lot. I just realized I don't have a pen again.
3 gods, 1 true faith. Watch yourself. We'll have no trouble here.
Well, that
Not
was
now,
slightly annoying.
Head on.
I do have a pen, but it is a different pen from what I've been using. So the thickness of the ink is going to be different. It's fine, but it's just a slight annoyance. Alright, actually, also, let me go ahead and pull some other stuff up. Let's do this. Got chat there. That and that's Morrowind
By the 3, my rights and duties.
subject. There we go. All right. We are all prepared now. So, let's see. Last time I left off on Dance and Fire, I think I read up through chapter 5. Hello, Macon Gula. How are you doing? Wealth Beyond Measure Outlander? Hell yeah. My character is pretty poor right now, sadly, but you know, we'll turn that around at some point, maybe. But yeah, I think I left off chapter 5. I have read chapter 6 before, but doing alright with you. I'm doing pretty well.
Watch yourself.
Yeah, had a
You'll
nice
have
day.
no trouble here.
So I think I'll just reread chapter 6 because I have, like, read the whole thing in order as well. Let me find it in my notebook real quick. There we go. Yeah. Alright, well, let's start off with chapter 6, then do chapter 7. And then right after that, there
We're
is,
watching you,
in my other
scum.
save, other, other character, I found a book that seems like it's only accessible through a, possibly, I mean, I don't think you have to do the quest, but there's a book that's part of a quest line that seems to only be in one location, so I want to get that one before I forget where it is. It's in the Mages Guild. I think it's part of the Aldaroon Mages Guild quest line. And so I found out about that one. So I want to make sure that I don't forget where it is. And go ahead and grab that one. Alright. A Dance in Fire, Chapter 6, by Wagon Jarth. Decimus Scotti sat down, listening to Leodes Juris. The clerk could hardly believe how fat his former colleague at Lord Atreus's building commission had become. The piquant aroma of the roasted meat dish before Scotti melted away. All the other sounds and textures of Prothala Hall vanished all around him, as if nothing else existed but the vast form of Juris. Scotti did not consider himself an emotional man, but he felt a tide flow over him at the sight and sound of the man whose badly written letters had been guideposts that carried him from the Imperial City back in early Frostfall. "Where have you been?" Juris demanded again. "I told you to meet me in Fallenesteady weeks ago." "I was there weeks ago," Scotti stammered, too surprised to be indignant. "I got your note to meet you in Athay, and so I went there, but the Khajiit had burned it to the ground. Somehow, I found my way with the refugees in another village, and someone there told me that you had been killed." "And you believed that right away?" Juris sneered. "The fellow seemed very well informed about you. He was a clerk from Lord Vanitch's building commission named Reglius, and he said that you had also suggested that he come down to Valenwood to profit from the war." "Oh, yes," said Juris after thinking for a moment. "I recall the name now. Well, it's good for business to have 2 representatives from the Imperial Building Commission here. We just need to all coordinate our bids, and all should be well." "Reglius is dead," said Scotti. "But I have his contracts from Lord Vanitch's commission." "Even better," gasped Juris, impressed. "I never knew you were such a ruthless competitor. Decimus Scotti, yes, this could certainly improve our position with the Sylvanar. Have I introduced you to Baths before?" Scotti had only been dimly aware of the Bosmer's presence at the table with Juris, which was surprising given that the Mer's girth nearly equaled his dining companion. The clerk nodded, Baths coldly. Still numb and confused, it had not left his mind that only an hour earlier Scotti had intended to petition the Sylvanar for safe passage through the border back to Cyrodiil. The thought of doing business with Juris after all of the profiting from the Valenwood War with Elsewhere and now the second one with Somerset Isles seemed like something happening to another person. "Your colleague and I were talking about the Sylvanar," said Baths, putting down the leg of mutton he had been gnawing on. "I don't suppose you've heard about his nature." "A little, but nothing very specific. I got the impression that he's very important and very peculiar." "He's the representative of the people, legally, physically, and emotionally," explained Juris, a little annoyed at how his new partner's lack of common knowledge. "When they are healthy, so is he. When they're mostly female, so is he. When they cry for food or trade or an absence of foreign interference, he feels it too, and makes laws accordingly. In a way, he's a despot, but he's the people's despot. That sounds, said Scotty, searching for the appropriate word, like bunk. Perhaps it is, shrugged Baths. But he has many rights as the voice of the people, including the granting of foreign building and trade contracts. It's not important whether you believe us. Just think of the Sylvanar as being like one of your mad emperors, like Pelagius. The problem facing us now is that since Valenwood is being attacked on all sides, that's the Sylvanar's aspect is now one of distrust and fear of foreigners. The one hope of his people, and thus of the Sylvanar himself, is that the Emperor will intervene and stop the war. Will he? Asked Scotty. You know as well as we do that the Emperor has not been himself lately. Juris helped himself to Regulus's satchel and pulled out the blank contracts. Who knows what he'll choose to do or not do? That reality is not our concern. But these blessings from the late good Sir Regulus make our job much simpler. They discussed how they would represent themselves to the Sylvanar into the evening. Scotty ate continuously, but not nearly so much as Juris and Baths. When the sun begun to rise in the hills, its light reddening through the crystal walls of the tavern, Juris and Baths left their rooms at the palace granted to them diplomatically in lieu of an actual immediate audience with the Sylvanar. Scotty went to his room. He thought about staying up a little longer to ruminate over Juris's plans and see what might be the flaw in them, but upon touching the cool, soft bed, he immediately fell asleep. The next afternoon, Scotty awoke, feeling himself again. In other words, timid. For several weeks now, he had been a creature bent on mere survival. He had been driven to exhaustion, attacked by several jungle beasts, starved, nearly drowned, and forced into a discussion of ancient Aldmeri poetical works. The discussion he had with Juris and Baths about how to dupe the Sylvanar into signing their contracts seemed perfectly reasonable then. Scotty dressed himself in his old battered clothes and went downstairs in search of food and a peaceful place to think. "You're up," cried Baths upon seeing him. "We should go to the palace now." "Now?" Scotty whined. "Look at me. I need new clothes. This isn't the way one should dress to pay a call on a prostitute, let alone the voice of the people of Valenwood. I haven't even bathed." You must cease from this moment forward being a clerk, and become a student of mercantile trade, said Leiotis Juris grandly, taking Scotty by the arm and leading him into the sunlit boulevard outside. The first rule is to recognize what you represent to the prospective client, and what angle best suits you. You cannot dazzle him with opulent fashion and professional bearing, my dear boy, and it would be fatal if you attempted to. Trust me on this. Several others besides Baths and I are guests at the palace, and they have made the error of appearing too eager, too formal, too ready for business. They will never be granted audience with the Sylvanar. But we have remained aloof ever since the initial rejection. I've dallied about the court, spread my knowledge of life in the imperial city, had my ears pierced, attended promenades, eaten and drunk of all that was given to me. I dare say I've put on a pound or two. The message we sent is clear. It is in his, not our, best interest to meet. Our plan worked, added Baths. When I told his minister that our imperial representative had arrived and that we were at last willing to meet with the Sylvanar this morning, we were told straight away to bring you there. Aren't we late then? Asked Scotty. Very, laughed Juris, but that's again part of the angle we're representing. Benevolent disinterest. Remember, not to confuse the Sylvanar with conventional nobility. His is the mind of the common people. When you grasp that, you'll understand how to manipulate him. Juris spent the last several minutes of the walk through the city expounding on his theories about what Valenwood needed, how much and at what price. They were staggering figures, far more construction and far higher costs than anything Scotty had been used to dealing with. He listened carefully. All around them, the city of Sylvanar revealed itself, glass and flower, roaring winds and beautiful inertia. When they reached the palace of Sylvanar, Decamascati stopped, stunned. Juris looked at him for a moment and laughed. It's quite bizarre, isn't it? That it was, a frozen scarlet burst of twisted, uneven spires, as if a rival sun rising. A blossom the size of a village, where courtiers and servants resembled nothing so much as insects walked about, sucking its ichor. Entering over a bent petal-like bridge, the three walked through the palace of unbalanced walls, where the partitions bent close together and touched. There was a shaded hall or a small chamber where they warped away from one another. There was a courtyard. There were no doors anywhere. No any way to get to the Sylvanar but by crossing through the entire spiral of the palace, through meetings and bedrooms and dining halls, past dignitaries, consorts, musicians, and many guards. It's an interesting place, said Bass, but not very much privacy. Of course, that suits the Sylvanar well. When they reached the inner corridors 2 hours after they first entered the palace, guards brandishing blades and bowls stopped them. We have an audience with the Sylvanar, said Juris patiently. This is Lord Decamascati, the imperial representative. One of the guards disappeared down the winding corridor and returned moments later with a tall, proud Bosmer, clad in a loose robe of patchwork leather. He was the Minister of Trade. The Sylvanar wishes to speak with Lord Decamascati alone. It was not the place to argue or show fear, so Scotty stepped forward, not even looking toward Juris and Baths. He was certain they were showing their mask of benevolent indifference. Following the minister into the audience chamber, Scotty recited to himself all the facts and figures Juris had presented to him. He willed himself to remember the angle and the image he must project. The audience chamber of the Sylvanar was an enormous dome, where the walls bent from bowl-shaped at the base inward to almost meet at the top. A thin ray of sunlight streamed through the fissure hundreds of feet above, and directly upon the Sylvanar, who stood upon a puff of shimmering gray powder. For all the wonder of the city, the palace, the Sylvanar himself, looked perfectly ordinary, an average, blandly handsome, slightly tired-looking, extraordinary wood elf, of the type one might see in any capital in the Empire. It was only when he stepped from the dais that Scotty noticed an eccentricity in his appearance. He was very short. I had to speak with you alone, said the Sylvanar in a voice common and unrefined. May I see your papers? Scotty handed him the blank contracts from Lord Vanitch's building commission. The Sylvanar studied them, running his finger over the embossed seal of the Emperor before handing them back. He suddenly seemed shy, looking to the floor. There are many charlatans at my court who wish to benefit from the wars. I thought you and your colleagues were among them, but those contracts are genuine. Yes, they are, Scotty said calmly. The Sylvanar's conventional aspect made it easy for Scotty to speak with no formal greetings, no deference, exactly as Juris had instructed. It seems most sensible to begin straight away talking about the roads which need to be rebuilt, and then the harbors that the Altmeri have destroyed, and then I can give you my estimate on the cost of resupplying and renovating the trade routes. Why hasn't the Emperor seen fit to send a representative when the war with Elsewhere began 2 years ago? Asked Sylvanar glumly. Scotty thought for a moment before replying of all the common Bosmeri he had met in Valenwood, the greedy, frightened mercenaries who had escorted him from the border, the hard-drinking revelers and the expert pest-exterminating archers in the western cross of Fallenesti, nosy old Mother Pascott in Havelslump, Captain Balfix, the poor, sadly reformed pirate, the terrified but hopeful refugees of Athe and Grenos, the mad, murderous, self-devouring wild hunt of Vindici, the silent, dour boatsman hired by Griff Malin, the degenerate, grasping Baths, If one creature represented their total disposition, and that of many more throughout the province, what would his personality be? Scotty was a clerk by occupation and nature, instinctively comfortable cataloging and filing, making things fit in a system. If the soul of Valenwood were to be filed, where would it be put? The answer came upon him almost before he posed himself the question. Denial. I'm afraid that question doesn't interest me, said Scotty. Now, can we get back to business at hand? All afternoon, Scotty and the Sylvanar discussed the pressing needs of Valenwood. Every contract was filled and signed. So much was required, and there were so many costs associated, that the addendums and codicils had to be scribbled into the margins of the papers, and those had to be re-signed. Scotty maintained his benevolent indifference, but he found that dealing with the Sylvanar was not quite the same as dealing with a simple, sullen child. The voice of the people knew certain practical, everyday things very well. The yields of fish, the benefits of trade, the condition of every township and forest in his province. We will have a banquet tomorrow night to celebrate this commission, said the Sylvanar at last. Best make it tonight, replied Scotty. We should leave for Cyrodiil with the contracts tomorrow, so I'll need a safe passage to the border. We best not waste any more time. Agreed, said the Sylvanar, and called for his Minister of Trade to put his seal on the contracts and arrange for the feast. Scotty left the chamber and was greeted by Baths and Juris. Their faces showed the strain of maintaining the illusion of unconcern for too many hours. As soon as they were out of sight of the guards, they begged Scotty to tell them all. When he showed them the contracts, Baths began weeping with delight. Anything about the Sylvanar that surprised you? Asked Juris. I hadn't expected him to be half my height. Was he? Juris looked mildly surprised. He must have shrunk since I tried to have an audience with him earlier. Maybe there's something to it all. That nonsense about him being affected by the plight of his people. That is really cool. Honestly, the Sylvanar sounds so cool. Like the idea for it, like being the soul of the people and being, affected by the thoughts and the, the plight and all that of his people. Dude, that's so cool. I love that. That might be, honestly, if that's like the true lore, I don't know how I didn't know about that. That sounds so cool. Because, one thing to note here, A Dance in Fire is I'm pretty sure it's a fiction book. So this is not like actual history. It's like I've seen in some forums that A Dance in Fire is like the,
for trouble, you'll get more than you bargained for.
Is like the, what is it called? Damn, why can't I think of it? It's that really popular, like, show, like, kind of like Lord of the Rings, fantasy. What's it called? And, like, people dying all the time, like, main characters and stuff. I never watched the show, but people compare it to that, I guess. It's like the Game of Thrones, that's what it is. It's like the Game of Thrones of the Elder Scrolls universe is A Dance in Fire. So this is fiction in the Elder Scrolls universe. But, it might have some truth in it. Like, I wonder if the Sylvanar is like an actual thing in the Elder Scrolls lore. And, if he actually is like that. Because that's such a cool ruler. Like, a way for a ruler to exist. I mean, it also kind of sounds like an easy excuse for having, like, a monarchy. Like, a very moral monarchy, I guess. Or, like, an empire kind of thing. I love it. Sylvanar sounds so cool. I hope that's real. And if that's not the case, then he's my favorite fictional emperor. Or, ruler. At least
Submit
that
to
I've read
the
about so
three,
far.
the spirits and thy lords.
Alright. Also, hello Longhorn, how are you doing? Ooh, our mercantile increased. Alright. Next chapter. A Dance in Fire, Chapter 7, by Wagon Jarth. Scene, Sylvanar Valenwood. Date, 13 Sun's Dusk, 3rd Era 397. The banquet at the palace of the Sylvanar was well attended by every jealous bureaucrat and trader who had attempted to contract the rebuilding of Valenwood. They looked on Decamuscati, Lyotis Juris, and Baths with undisguised hatred. It made Scotty very uncomfortable, but Juris delighted in it. As the servants brought in platter after platter of roasted meats, Juris poured himself a cup of jaga and toasted the clerk. "I can confess it now," said Juris. I had grave doubts about inviting you to join me on this adventure. All the other clerks and agents of building commissions I contacted were more outwardly aggressive, but none of them made it through, let alone to the audience chamber of the Sylvanar, let alone brokered the deals on their own like you did. Come, have a cup of jaga with me." "No, thank you," said Scotty. "I had too much of that drug in Falnesti and nearly got sucked dry by a giant tick because of it. I'll find something else to drink." Scotty wandered about the hall until he saw some diplomats drinking mugs of a steaming brown liquid poured from a large silver urn. He asked them if it was tea. "Tea? Made from leaves?" scoffed the first diplomat. "Not in Valenwood. This is rot meth." Scotty poured himself a mug and took a tentative sip. It was gamey, bitter, and sugared, and very salty. At first it seemed very disagreeable to his palate, but a moment later he found he had drained the mug and was pouring another. His body tingled, all the sounds in the chamber seemed oddly disjointed, but not frighteningly so. "So, you're the fellow who got the Sylvanar to sign all those contracts," said the second diplomat. "That must have required some deep negotiation." "Not at all, not at all. Just a little basic understanding of mercantile trading," grinned Scotty, pouring himself a third mug of rot meth. The Sylvanar was very eager to involve the Imperial State with the affairs of Valenwood. I was very eager to take a percentage of the commission. With all that blessed eagerness, it was merely a matter of putting Quill to contract. Bless you. "You have been in the employ of His Imperial Majesty very long?" asked the first diplomat. "It's a bite, or rather a bit more complicated than that. In the Imperial City, between you and me, I don't really have a job. I used to work for Lord Atreus and his building commission, but I got sacked, and then the contracts are from Lord Vanish's and his building commission, 'cause I got him from this fellow Regulus, who is a competitor, but still a very fine fellow, until he was made dead by those Khajiit." Scotty drained his fifth mug. "When I go back to the Imperial City, then the real negotiations can begin, bless you. I can go to my old employer and to Lord Vanish and say, 'Look here, which one of you wants these commissions?' And they'll fall over each other to take them from me. It will be a bidding war for my percentage, the likes of which no one, nowhere has ever seen." "So, you're not a representative of His Imperial Majesty the Emperor?" asked the first diplomat. "Didn't you hear what I said? You stupid?" Scotty felt a surge of rage, which quickly subsided. He chuckled and poured himself a seventh mug. "The building commissions are privately owned, but they're still representatives of the emperor. So, I'm a representative of the emperor. Or I will be, when I get these contracts put in. It's very complicated. I can understand why you're not following. Bless you. It's like the poet said, a dance in fire. If you follow the illusion, that is to say, illusion. And your colleagues, are they representatives of the Emperor? Asked the second diplomat. Scotty burst into laughter, shaking his head. The diplomats bade him their respects and went to talk to the minister. Scotty stumbled out of the palace and reeled through the strange organic avenues and boulevards of the city. It took him several hours to find his way to Perthala Hall and his room. Once there, he slept very nearly on his bed. The next morning, he woke to Juris and baths in his room shaking him. He felt half asleep and unable to open his eyes, but otherwise fine. The conversation with the diplomats floated in his mind, in a haze, like an obscure childhood memory. "What in Mara's name is rotmeth?" he asked quickly. "Rancid, strongly fermented meat juices with lots of spices to kill the poisons," smiled Baths. "I should have warned you to stay with Jaga." "You must understand the meat mandate by now," laughed Juris. "These Bosmeri would rather eat each other than touch the fruit of the vine or the field." "What did I say to those diplomats?" cried Scotty, panicking. "Nothing bad, apparently," said Juris, pulling out some papers. "Your escorts are downstairs to bring you to the Imperial Province. Here are your papers of safe passage. The Sylvanar seems very impatient about business proceedings. Forward rapidly. He promises to send you some sort of rare treasure when the contracts are fulfilled. See, he's already given me something." Juris showed off his new bejeweled earring, a beautiful, large, faceted ruby. Baths showed that he had a similar one. The two fat fellows left the room so Scotty could dress and pack. A full regiment of the Sylvanar's guards was on the street in front of the tavern. They surrounded a carriage crested with the official arms of Valenwood. Still dazed, Scotty climbed in, and the captain of the guard gave the signal. They began a quick gallop. Scotty shook himself, then peered behind. Baths and Juris were waving him goodbye. "Wait," Scotty cried. "Aren't you coming back to the Imperial Province too?" "The Sylvanar asked that we stay behind as Imperial representatives," yelled Leiodes Juris, "in case there's a need for more contracts and negotiations. He's appointed us as undrape, some sort of special honor for foreigners at court. Don't worry, lots of banquets to attend. You can handle the negotiations with Vanich and Atreus yourself, and we'll keep things settled here." Juris continued to yell advice about business, but his voice became indistinct with distance. Soon it disappeared altogether as the convoy rounded the streets of Sylvanar. The jungle loomed suddenly, and then they were in it. Scotty had only gone through it by foot or along the rivers by slow-moving boats. Now it flashed all around him in profusions of greens. The horses seemed even faster moving through the underbrush than on the smooth paths of the city. None of the weird sounds or dank smells of the jungle penetrated the escort. It felt to Scotty as if he were watching a play about the jungle with a background of quickly moving scrim, which offered only the merest suggestion of the place. So it went for 2 weeks. There was lots of food and water in the carriage with the clerk, so he merely ate and slept as the caravan pressed endlessly on. From time to time, he'd hear the sound of blades clashing, but when he looked around, whatever had attacked the caravan had long since been left behind. At last, they reached the border, where an imperial garrison was stationed. Scotty presented the soldiers who met the carriage with papers. They asked him a barrage of questions that he answered monosyllabically, and then let him pass. It took several more days to arrive at the gates of the imperial city. The horses that had flown so fast through the jungle now slowed in the unfamiliar territory of the wooded Clovian estates. By contrast, the cries of his province's birds and smells of his province's plants life brought Decimus Scotty alive. It was as if he had been dreaming all the past months. At the gates of the city, Scotty's carriage door was open for him, and he stepped out on uncertain legs. Before he had a moment to say something to the escort, they had vanished, galloping back south through the forest. The first thing he did now that he was home was go to the closest tavern and have tea and fruit and bread. If he ever ate meat again, he told himself that would suit him very nicely. Negotiations with Lord Atreus and Lord Vanitch proceeded immediately afterwards. It was most agreeable. Both commissions recognized how lucrative the rebuilding of Valenwood would be for their agency. Lord Vanitch claimed quite justifiably that as the contracts had been written on forms notarized by his commission, he had the legal right to them. Lord Atreus claimed that Decimus Scotti was his agent and representative, and that he had never been released from the employment. The Emperor was called to arbitrate, but he claimed to be unavailable. His advisor, the Imperial battle mage Jagar Tharn, had disappeared long ago and could not be called on for wisdom and impartial mediation. Scotti lived very comfortably off the bribes from Lord Atreus and Lord Vanitch. Every week, a letter would arrive from Juris or Baths asking about the status of negotiations. Gradually, these letters ceased, coming more urgent ones from the Minister of Trade and the Sylvanar himself. The War of the Blue Divide with Somerset Isle ended, with the Altmerry winning several new coastal islands from the Wood Elves. The war with Elsewhere continued ravaging the eastern borders of Valenwood. Still, Vanitch and Atreus fought over who would help. One fine morning in the early spring of year 3rd era 398, a courier arrived at Decimus Scotti's door. Lord Vanitch has won the Valenwood Commission and requests that you and the contracts come to his hall at your earliest convenience. Has Lord Atreus decided not to challenge further? Asked Scotti. He's been unable to, having died very suddenly, just now, from a terrible, unfortunate accident, said the courier. Scotti had wondered how long it would be before the Dark Brotherhood was brought in for final negotiations. As he walked forward, Lord Vanitch's building commissioned a long, severe piece of architecture on a minor but respectable plaza. He wondered if he had played the game as he ought to have. Could Vanitch be so rapacious as to offer him a lower percentage of the commission now that his chief competitor was dead? Thankfully, he discovered Lord Vanitch had already decided to pay Scotti what he had proposed during the heat of the winter negotiations. His advisors had explained to him that other lesser building commissions might come forward, unless the matter were handled quickly and fairly. Glad we have all the legal issues done with, said Lord Vanitch fondly. Now we can get to the business of helping the poor Bosmeri and collecting the profits. It's a pity you weren't our representative for all the troubles with Ben Darmok and the Armnesian business, but there will be plenty more wars, and I'm sure of that. Scotti and Lord Vanitch sent word to the Sylvanar that at last they were prepared to honor the contracts. A few weeks later, they held a banquet in honor of the profitable business. Decimus Scotti was the darling of the imperial city, and no expense was spared to make it an unforgettable evening. As Scotti met the nobles and wealthy merchants who would be benefiting from his business dealings, an exotic but somehow faintly familiar smell rose in the ballroom. He traced it to its source, a thick, roasted slab of meat, so long and thick it covered several platters. The Cyrodiilic revelers were eating it ravenously, unable to find words to express their delight at its taste and texture. It's like nothing I've ever had before. It's like pig-fed venison. Do you see the marbling of fat and meat? It's a masterpiece. Scotti went to take a slice, but then he saw something embedded deep in the dried, rendered roast. He nearly collided with his new employer, Lord Vanitch, as he stumbled back. "Where did this come from?" Scotti stammered. "From our client, the Sylvanar," beamed his lordship. "It's some kind of local delicacy they call unthrapa." Scotti vomited. It didn't stop for some time. It cast a rather temporary pall on the evening, but when Decimus Scotti was carried off to his manor house, the guests continued to dine. The unthrapa was the delight of all, even more so when Lord Vanitch himself took a slice and found the first two rubies buried within. How very clever of the Bosmer to invent such a dish. The Cyrodiils agreed. Wow. That is quite the ending there. Honestly, almost the entire book, I was just waiting for something to happen. And then ending with that, 2 rubies and the meat. Damn. Because, if you don't remember or joined after I read that bit, Scotty, he teamed up with Leotis Juris and Bass, and they were both given a big ruby earring. So, can be assumed that this Unthrapa is Leotis Juris and Bath's. And, they're just doing some cannibalizing right now without realizing it. And that is quite crazy. Damn. It was a really good book. I liked it. Very fun. Yeah. Dance and Fire. Real good. I liked it. Interesting, yeah. That was a good ending. Honestly, like the entire book, I was like just waiting for something bad to happen. Like after he like spilled his guts while he was high, off of the rot meth. Like when they were talking about, oh well, yeah, we bid you safe passage. The entire time I was like, oh, something's gonna happen.
What do you
Reminds
want?
you of Vlad the Impaler, lol? Yeah.
What's this regarding?
Kinda, right? Yeah, it does. Alright, so before I forget this, because I'm bound to forget it quite easily, there is a book that I'm pretty sure is unique that you can find during the Mage's Guild questline in Aldroon, but it's in Vivec. So you're during the questline, basically what you're no, not on this one. What you're supposed to do is the leader of the Mage's Guild in Aldroon asks you to borrow a book from this mage in Vivec, but you just kind of steal it and then put it back secretly. But yeah,
Okay, I'm
if
listening.
I'm right, this is the only location of the book,
You wish to
so it'd be good to get it right now. Borrow, yeah. Well, you put it back at the end of the quest, like you give it to that mage in Aldroon, and then you do another mission, and then the mission after that, she tells you, "Hey, can you put this back where you found it?" So she doesn't
What do you
realize
want?
that we borrowed it, and she doesn't suspect anything. But it is in here. Ooh, there is actually a problem. This has a lock level of 30, and I don't think I have any way to unlock that right now. That's a bit of an issue, actually. Alright, how can I get around that? I mean, an easy way would be to just, funny how the rules of the joining the Mage Guild say don't steal from members, and then they send you to steal from members. Well, actually, it's like that with most guilds. Yeah, pretty much. Almost every guild, you do something that's against guild rules. I mean, on some of them, it's like a you know, if you do, depending on how you complete the quest, will affect how, you know, you're standing in the guild in regards to other people. I think change the result, I guess, of the story. House Savani actively encourages to backstep your top. Yeah. House Savani is probably the worst on that kind of thing. Alright, let's go to... Now, I think what I might have to do here is... Because I know I can get the Scrolls of Opening by talking with her. I talk with her, and then she'll let me tell... But that might be like 2 or 3 missions down the line. I know the first... You recently finished the Telvanni playthrough. It was fun, though. Yeah. I only did like a couple of the initial Telvanni quests, but I never actually finished it. But it's a good playthrough? Okay. I'm gonna have to do that at some point. Because honestly, the Telvanni is like my favorite of the Morrowind houses. Yeah. I don't know. The other houses are cool, but like the Telvanni are so interesting. You enjoyed it? Okay. Yeah, I have to check it out. What about you? What's your favorite house? Actually, do I have Chronicles of Nehuleft on me? Dang, I only have Charwick. Okay. You enjoyed it? Usually plays a good person, but evil being being evil is fun sometimes too. Yeah, same. I usually play like a good guy.
Training for the right price.
I'm gonna check if the bookstore in Aldrune has the book, but I might have to teleport back to Vivek. Usually join Hlalu. Right. Yeah. Hlalu's cool. Can't spell that one, obviously. It's a confusing one to spell, completely understandably. Is there something particular that you like about the Hlalu? Because, like, for me, I love the Telvanni. They're just like, leave us alone. We just want to do magic. We're just gonna go we're gonna grow these mushrooms. We're gonna live in them and just leave us alone. We don't want to deal with you guys.
Speak, traveler.
Usually play some kind of thief. Right, yeah. It makes sense. I don't think the guy in Eldrin has it, honestly. I'd be surprised if he did. Fits best with the playstyle, yeah. For sure. Wait, he actually has Nahulif? No.
Go ahead, stranger.
Alright, we're gonna have to go.
My time is precious, so make it quick.
I think it's like the next mission where she gives you scrolls of unlocking. Actually, it might be like 2 more missions, which is a bit much. I don't want to do that much. Just to get like scrolls of unlocking. I don't know about that. Let's see, maybe I can... I mean, level 30 is a bit much to... Oh wait, what? Opens 50 on touch? Damn, okay, no, I can just do this. I did not think Ondusi's opening door was 50 points. Holy shit, okay. Easy. We don't need the scrolls. I just realized I don't think I've ever actually picked a lock in the game. I've always used like Ondusi's the open door open lock spell. I don't think I've ever actually used the lock picking. I should also just go ahead and sleep.
Speak freely, friend.
What do you
Magic and
want?
Morrowind's OP, yeah. I mean, like, have you ever done any lock? Like, you play Thieves, so do you ever do the lock picking? Because the magic is so much stronger. Alchemy even more so. Oh yeah, alchemy's crazy. Sometimes, yeah. I mean, if you're doing like art, role playing, I guess you kind of have to. You're like, all right, yeah, I'm gonna pick this lock because my character probably wouldn't know magic. But I don't know. Magic is. Oh wait, no. Where am I going? It's in here. You pick locks when you can, but those unlock spells are so much
I will
easier.
listen,
Yeah,
Commander, but make it quick.
they are. Especially, I mean, Ondusi opening door being up to level 50 is crazy. I mean, I'm probably gonna fail casting it like over and over again here. Oh damn, I have a 3. My chance of casting it is 3. That's probably because my fatigue is low. So I guess I'll just let it slowly recover. Do you have any mods that you use when you play? Or any fun mods that you recommend? Nothing wrong with a thief using a little magic when it's useful, yeah. For sure. Oh man, yeah, that chance is abysmal. Oh god. Well, that failed. I mean, a 3%, a chance of 3 is a bit low. Um, cause yeah, my other like Morrowind, I guess, series that I'm doing, I'm trying to download one mod, or I'm thinking about trying to download one mod every stream. Play open MW, mostly stick to the heart of vanilla with a few quality of life mods and player homes. Nice. Yeah, I mean, I don't want anything like completely changing. Like this mod here, I've got the chocolate UI mod, but I don't know. I might go back to vanilla UI. I'll probably still get the font that chocolate UI comes with because the font is nice. Um, but the UI itself, I might just go back to vanilla. You like the chocolate UI? Yeah, I like it as it's good, but it also feels like it feels a bit too modern, I guess. Um, I don't know how I feel about it. I'm probably gonna like go back to the regular
Anytime now.
UI and like compare back and forth.
I will listen, Outlander, but make it quick.
Let's see if any of these guys sell scrolls of
You
unlocking.
want something, friend?
So what books do they have here? Nothing interesting. But yeah, as you can notice there, I do have a regen magicka mod. But like on the reading books playthrough, whatever. Having some magic regen. I'm not really doing many fights anyway, so I don't really care. But on my other playthrough, I don't know. I might.
Go ahead.
I haven't decided whether I want to get rid of it or not.
Yes.
You're waiting for OpenMW .49 to be released to start a new playthrough, so you can use a mod I discovered that lets you build your own home slash village. Ooh, that sounds cool. It's based on the Fallout 4 settlement building. That sounds pretty sweet. But hold on just a sec. I'm gonna go to the bathroom. I'll be right back. Alright, we're back. Yeah, the like village and settlement mods and stuff. Like there was one for Skyrim that I always installed. You know, it was pretty decently made. It wasn't the best. There were lots of glitches with it. Um, but like the amount of effort that you have to do, like I love the idea of building a village and all that stuff, but the amount of effort it is to do it all, I'm like, I always dip out because I'm like, oh, this is gonna take way too long. But oh, it sounds so cool to just build a village and stuff. Planad, Tamriel rebuilt, Skyrim and Cyrodiil mods. Ooh, those look real cool as well. Let me know how that goes. Cause yeah, I don't know. I might try to get those mods running, but I don't know. All right, let's see. I think maybe if I might just go ahead and try to do this. Well, actually, hold on. See if she has any alteration potions. Oh, that's called. Okay,
I'm listening.
we'll try to unlock it with Unduce's spell one more time. Oh, actually did it. Hell yeah. Well, might as well take them both. Nothing suspicious happened here. You didn't see me. Forget about me. Goodbye. Alright, we have another book now that that I'm pretty sure is not otherwise able to be found. So this is Kimar Vimidium, Ancient Tales of the Dwemer, Part 6, by Maribor Sul. After many battles, it was clear who would win the war. The Chimer had great skills in magic and bladery, but against the armored battalions of the Dwemer, clad in the finest shieldings, wrought by Jnago, there was little hope of their winning. In the interest of keeping some measure of peace in the land, Stovin, the warlord, agreed to a truce with Karanithil, Berith of the Beast. In exchange for the disputed lands, Stovin gave Berith a mighty golem which would protect the Chimer's territory from the excursions of the northern barbarians. Berith was delighted with his gift and brought it back to his camp, where all his warriors gaped in awe at it. Sparkling golden hue, and resembled a Dwemer cavalier with a proud aspect. To test its strength, they placed the golem in the center of an arena and flung magical bolts of lightning at it. Its agility was such that few of the bolts struck it. It had the wherewithal to pivot on its hips to avoid the brunt of the attacks without losing its balance. Feet firmly planted on the ground, a vault of fireballs followed, with the golem ably dodged, bending its knees and its legs to spin around the blasts. Sorry. Where was I? The few times it was struck, it made certain to be hit in the chest and waist, the strongest parts of its body. The troops cheered at the sight of such an agile and powerful creation. With it leading the defense, the barbarians of Skyrim would never again successfully raid their villages. They named it Kimar Vimidium, the hope of the Chimer. Berith has the golem brought to his chambers with all his house thanes. There they tested the Chimarvidium with further, its strength, its speed, its resiliency. They could find no flaw with its design. Imagine when the naked barbarians first meet this one on their raids, laughed one of the house thanes. It is only unfortunate that it resembles a Dwemer instead of one of our own, mused Caranthil, Berith. It is revolting to think that they will have a greater respect for our other enemies than us. I think we should never have accepted the peace terms that we did, said another one of the most aggressive of the house thanes. Is it too late to surprise the warlord Stovin with an attack? It is never too late to attack, said Berith. But what of his great armored warriors? I understand, said Berith's spymaster, that his soldiers always wake at dawn. If we strike an hour before, we can catch them defenseless, before they've had a chance to bathe, let alone don their armor. If we capture their armorer, Jnago, then we too would know the secrets of blacksmithery, said Berith. Let it be done. We attack tomorrow, an hour before dawn. So it was settled. The Chimer army marched at night and swarmed the Dwemer camp. They were relying on the Chimarvimidium to lead the first wave, but it malfunctioned and began attacking the Chimer's own troops. Added to that, the Dwemer were fully armored, well-rested, and eager for battle. The surprise was turned, and most of the high-ranking Chimer, including Karanithil, Berith the Beast, was captured. Though they were too proud to ask, Stovin explained to them that he had been warned of their attacks by calling by one of his men. What man of yours is in our camp? Chimarvidium, standing erect by the side of the captured, removed its head. Within its metal body was Jnago, the armorer. A dwarven child of 8 can create a golem, he explained, but only a truly great warrior and armor can pretend to be one. Publisher's note. This is one of the few tales in this collection which can actually be traced to a Dwemer. The wording of the story is quite different from older versions in Aldmeris, but the essence is the same. Chimarvimidium may be the Dwemer. Oh my god. Nachmarthurnidams. No. Nachmarthurnidams. This word occurs several times in the plans of the Dwemer armor and animunculi, but its meaning is not known. It is almost certainly not the hope of the Chimer, however. The Dwemer were probably the first to use heavy armors. It is important to note how a man dressed in armor could fool many of the Chimer in this story. Also note how the Chimer warriors react when this story was first told. Armor that covered the whole body must have still been uncommon and new, whereas even then, Dwemer creations like golems and centurions were well known. In a rare scholarly moment, Marobar Sul leaves a few pieces of the original story intact, such as parts of the original line in Aldmeris. A Dwemer of 8 can create a golem, but an 8 of Dwemer can become one. Another aspect of this legend that scholars like myself find interesting is the mention of the calling. In this legend, and in others, there's a suggestion that the Dwemer race as a whole had some sort of silent and magical communication. There are records of the Sigic Order which suggests they too share this secret. Whatever the case, there are no documented spells of the calling. The historian Borgusilus Mallier first proposed this as a solution to the disappearance of the Dwemer. He theorized that in First Era 668, the Dwemer in enclaves were called together by one of their powerful philosopher-sorcerers, Kagranak, in some documents, to embark on a great journey, one of each sublime profundity, that they abandoned all their cities and lands to join the quest to foreign climes as an entire culture. This was pretty cool as well. Nice little book here. Let me try pronouncing this again. Nechmarthurnidams. That's a mouthful. I don't know how to really pronounce that at all. Damn. You know, whenever I watch like lore videos for the Elder Scrolls, like Fudge Muppet, Drew Mora, um, Camelworks, those guys, they have such like I want to have their like skill with pronouncing everything. Yeah, I mean their stuff is recorded, of course, and so they can, look up pronunciations and all that, I guess. But the stuff like Nachmach Durnadams, like there's no like where would you look up how to pronounce that? How do you pronounce that? They probably know. Drew Mora probably sees that word right away, and it's exaggeration right there, but he probably know how to pronounce that, which is crazy. I don't know how they do it. Maybe I should look it up. How to pronounce Nachmach-Durnadams. Let's see. D. All right. So. Uh. Okay. Just want to read the text for it, though. I'm Alright, here we go. Alright, and then I'm just gonna put that into Google, see what comes out of that. Alright, so Kimmarvidium. Okay. I don't see anywhere where it kind of says how to pronounce that. So I guess you just kind of have to make up a pronunciation for that. Oh, there is a pronunciation. Okay, so according to this Reddit post at least, uh, let's see. So they have a phonetical way to say this on this in this Reddit post. At least I think in the comments maybe. Wait, where does it say it? On the blurb in Almeri translation right here. Kimmarvidian, which applies. Alright, so it's Rthurnidums. I don't know where they got that from though. Which implies that Rthurnid. Okay, hold on, let me read this. So even the publisher wasn't thinking Kimmarvidium was a Dwemer word. Perhaps I mistook your meaning. We may actually have the start of a Dwemer Aldmeri translation right here. That word to Kimmarvidium, which implies that Rthurnidums, roughly TDM, could be the Dwemer for Aldmeri medium suffix. DM actually sounds pretty similar to idiom. Just saying, what the fuck? How are people Okay, that's crazy how much people are analyzing this. Oh, and then here, conjecture. I mean, I guess I'll pronounce it that way. Rthurnidums is a conjugation of the Dwemeri word which means to shatter. It's closely related to the process of making animunculi by forging together several souls before breaking them into shards. The followers of... What? Who is it? That's crazy. What the fuck? People are analyzing this so heavily. Damn. That's crazy. I love it. Sorry, I was in a browser, so I guess you couldn't see what I was doing. But that is crazy. I love how passionate some people, how passionate people are about the Elder Scrolls. It's very nice. All right, let's read. I picked up one more book that I don't think I've read before here as well. Is something like water or something? Breathing water. There we go. Ooh, my alteration increased. Alright. Breathing Water by Haliel Merm. He walked through the dry, crowded streets of Balfell, glad to be among so many strangers. In the wharfs of Vivec he had no such anonymity. They knew him to be a smuggler. But here he could be anyone. A lower-class peddler, perhaps. A student, even. Some people even pushed against him as he walked past, as if to say, "We would not dream of being so rude as to acknowledge that you don't belong here." Serene Relas was not in any of the taverns, but he knew she was somewhere, perhaps being a tenement widow or poking around in a dunghill for an exotic ingredient of some spell or another. He knew little of the ways of sorceresses, but they always seemed to be doing something eccentric. Because of this prejudice, he nearly passed by the old Dunmer woman having a drink from a well. It was too prosaic, but he knew from the look of her that she was Sarian Relas, the great sorcerer. I have gold for you, he said to her back, if you will teach me the secret of breathing water. She turned around, a wide, wet grin stretched across her weathered features. I ain't breathing it, boy, I'm just having a drink. Don't mock me, he said stiffly. Either you're Sarian Relas, and you will teach me the spell of breathing water, or you aren't. Those are the only possibilities. If you're going to learn to breathe water, you're going to have to learn there are more possibilities than that, boy. The school of alteration is all about possibilities, changing patterns, making things be what they could be. Maybe I ain't Sarian Relas, but I can teach you how to breathe water. She wiped her mouth dry. Or maybe I am Sarian Relas, and I won't. Or maybe even I can teach you to breathe water, but you can't learn. I'll learn, he said simply. Why don't you just buy yourself a spell of water breathing, or a potion over at the Mages Guild? She asked. That's how it's generally done. They're not powerful enough, he said. I need to be underwater for a long time. I'm willing to pay whatever you ask, but I don't want any questions. I was told you could teach me. What's your name, boy? That's a question, he replied. His name was Therian Winloth, but in Vivec they called him the Tollman. His job, such as it was collecting a percentage of the loot from smugglers when they came into the harbor to bring to his boss in the Monotong. Of the value of that percentage, he earned another percentage. In the end, it was very small indeed. He had scarcely any gold of his own, and what he had, he gave to Sarian Relas. The lessons began that very day. The sorceress brought her pupil, who she simply called Boy, out to a low sandbank along the sea. I will teach you a powerful spell for breathing water, she said, but you must become a master of it. As with all spells and all skills, the more you practice, the better you get. Even that ain't enough to achieve true mastery. You must understand what it is you're doing. It ain't simply enough to perform a perfect thrust of a blade. You must also know what you're doing and why. That's common sense, said Therian. Yes, it is, said Sarian, closing her eyes, but the spells of alteration are all about uncommon sense. The infinite possibilities, breaking the sky, swallowing space, dancing with time, setting ice on fire, believing that the unreal may become real. You must learn the rules of the cosmos and then break them. That sounds very difficult, replied Therian, trying to keep a straight face. Sarian pointed to the small silver fish dancing along the water's edge. They don't find it so. They breathe water just fine. But that's not magic. What I'm saying to you, boy, is that it is. For several weeks, Sarian drilled her student, and the more he understood about what he was doing, the more he practiced, the longer he could breathe underwater. When he found that he could cast the spell for as long as he needed, he thanked the sorceress and bade her farewell. There's one last lesson I have to teach you, she said. You must learn that desire is not enough. The world will end your spell no matter how good you are, and no matter how much you wanted. That's a lesson I'm happy not to learn, he said, and left at once for the short journey back to Vivec. The wharfs were much the same, with all the same smells, the same sounds, the same characters. His boss had found a new tollman, he learned from his mates. They were still looking out for the smuggler's ship Morrowind, but they had given up hope of ever seeing it. Therian knew they would not. He had seen it sink from the wharf a long time ago. On a moonless night, he cast his spell and dove into the thrashing purple waves. He kept his mind on the world of possibilities that books could sing, that green was blue, and that water was air, that every stroke and kick brought him closer to a sunken ship filled with treasure. He felt Magica surge all around him as he pushed his way deeper down. Ahead, he saw a ghostly shadow of the Morrodrung, its mast billowing in a wind of deep water currents. He also felt his spell beginning to fade. He could break reality long enough to breathe water all the way back up to the surface, but not enough to reach the ship. The next night, he dove again, and this time the spell was stronger. He could see the vessel in detail, clouded over and dusted in sediment. The wound in its hull where it had struck the reef, a glint of gold beckoning from within. But still, he felt reality closing in. He had to surface. The third night, he made it into the steerage, past the bloated corpses of the sailors, nibbled on and picked apart by fish, their glassy eyes bulging and their mouths stretched open. Had they only known the spell, he thought briefly, but his mind was more occupied by the gold scattered along the floor, the boxes that contained them shattered. He considered scooping as much as he could carry into his pockets, but a sturdy iron box seemed to bespeak more treasures. On the wall was a row of keys. He took each down and tried it on the locked box, but none opened it. One key, however, was missing. Thalion looked around the room. Where could it be? His eyes went to the corpse of one of the sailors, floating in a dance of death not far from the box. His hands tightly clutching something. It was a key. When the ship had begun to sink, this sailor had evidently gone for the iron box. Whatever was in it had to be very valuable. Thalion took the sailor's key and opened the box. It was filled with broken glass. He rummaged around until he felt something solid and pulled out 2 flasks of some kind of wine. He smiled as he considered the foolishness of the poor alcoholic. This was what was so important to that sailor, out of all the treasures in Morrowind. Then, suddenly, Thalion Winloth felt reality. He had not been paying attention to the grim, tireless advance of the world on his spell. It was fading away, his ability to breathe falter. There was no time to surface. There was no time to do anything. As he sucked in, his lungs filled with cold, briny water. A few days later, the smugglers working on the wharf came upon the drowned body of the former tollman. Finding a body in the water in Vivek was not in itself noteworthy, but the subject that they discussed over many bottles of Flynn was how did it happen that he drowned with 2 potions of water breathing in his hands? Huh. Okay, so I guess the flasks that he found in the locked box were water-breathing potions? But then, how were they intact at the end there? I don't know. If all my yawning's any indication, it might be time for me to go to bed. I had a pretty good time. A Dance and Fire was a really good book. I really liked that one. Kimarvidium was pretty interesting as well. And the water breathing one, it was interesting. Not quite as, the other 2 were really good. But yeah, that'll do it for today. I hope you guys had a good time. I guess, check out the Morrowind book reading playlist that I have for, just straight audiobooks. I'll keep working on that as well. add more books to the list and of books that I've read. And yeah, have a nice night, nice day, whatever time zone you're in. And yeah, peace.